The Silmarillion is widely seen as Tolkien's most complex book. There are so many characters, places, and events, all of which happen in a relatively short amount of time. Not even the die-hard fans who have read the book multiple times know all the details. Here are 7 things that you may not know about the Silmarillion. Number 1. Tolkien died 4 years before the book was published. Given that all the books set in Middle-earth have Tolkien's name on their covers, it's fairly easy to forget that only The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings were published while Tolkien was still alive. Everything else was brought together and edited by his son, Christopher Tolkien. This is especially true in the case of the Silmarillion, as Christopher had to search his father's writings, which he later combined into a huge book. That's the primary reason as to why the Silmarillion covers so much ground and why it isn't one coherent narration, but instead multiple stories, some more detailed than others. It also makes you realize that Tolkien didn't write the actual book, and it's possible that had he lived longer, he would have structured it completely different. Whether this would have been for the better or worse, I cannot say, because Tolkien worked all of his life to complete the Silmarillion, but never got around to see it published. Number 2. Beren was originally supposed to be an elf. Yes, the mortal man Beren, son of Barahir, was once the elf Beren, son of Egnor. Given how iconic he and Lúthien are for being the first ever union between a man and an elf, it's so surprising that Tolkien even considered such a change. This elf Beren can be found in the Tale of Tinuviel, the first draft of what would later become the Beren and Lúthien chapter. It's an interesting read, though keep in mind that it's among the first stories ever set in Middle-earth. Number 3. Feanor accidentally killed one of his sons. The sons of Feanor are among the most iconic and talked about characters of the First Age, with the younger two, Amrod and Amras, being well known for the fact that they were twins and for following their older brothers around without doing anything special. For this reason, they come across as unremarkable and quite easy to forget about. However, Tolkien planned on changing their story, and had his son Christopher incorporated these changes into the Silmarillion, then the twins wouldn't be nearly as overlooked as they are. This story can be found in The Peoples of Middle-earth, the last volume of the history of Middle-earth. Here Amrod is the younger out of the two twins. Before departing Tirion, Feanor is approached by his wife Nerdanel, who begs him to leave her the twins, or at least one of them. Feanor refuses, and Nerdanel foresees that one of her children will not set foot on Middle-earth. Fast forward immediately after Feanor and his followers' arrival in Beleriand and the burning of the ships, Feanor only finds 6 of his sons. It was then revealed that Amroth had been in one of the ships at the time of the burning, with the intention on sailing back to Middle-earth, and had been burned alongside with the ship. I really like this idea, as it not only makes Amrod and Amras into actual characters, but also gives more nuance and depth to Feanor's story. Number 4. The first stage was very short. People sometimes forget that the first stage, which began with the first rising of the sun and ended with the War of Wrath and the loss of the Silmarils, lasted just 590 years. To put that into perspective, the second age lasted 3,440 years and the third age 3,021 years. So yeah, almost all of the events in the Silmarillion happened in a relatively short amount of time. Number 5. Morgoth kept getting weaker and weaker as the first stage dragged on. At first, Morgoth was the strongest being in all of Arda, but as the age dragged on, he kept getting weaker and weaker. The main reason for this is because he had put on much of his power and innate being into Arda itself, hoping to corrupt it. Morgoth also let much of his energy pass into his servants, orcs, trolls, dragons, and the dreaded winged dragons. So as his armies were growing ever larger and stronger, the Dark Lord was becoming more and more weak. We can see this on several occasions. By the time of the Dagor Bragolach, he is stuck in the form of a Dark Lord and is wounded 8 times during his duel with Fingolfin. During the quest for the Silmaril, he is put to sleep by Lúthien, and after the Nirnaeth Arnoediad, his gaze, which once could cover Manwë himself, couldn't even cover Húrin. It should be mentioned that Fingolfin, Lúthien, and Húrin were all very powerful individuals. But Morgoth was once able to take on all of the Valar and win. And at the end of the War of Wrath, Morgoth flees to his deepest dungeon and begs for pardon and pity. Number 6. Sauron didn't plan for the downfall of Númenor to happen. Although the downfall of Númenor is often seen as Sauron's most wicked deed, it should be noted that he didn't actually intend to destroy the kingdom. He just wanted Ar-Pharazôn and his army to be destroyed, the same army that had humiliated him. When Númenor sank, Sauron was actually afraid, and had he not forged the One Ring of Power, then he would likely have perished in that catastrophe. Number 7. The book almost included one more chapter. This chapter would have bridged the events between the children of Húrin, or the shorter version called Of Túrin Turambar, and the chapter about the ruin of Doriath. It would have been titled The Wanderings of Húrin, and focus on the journeys of Húrin after his release from Angband. I'm only going to cover it in short because the whole concept deserves an entire video of its own. In short, Húrin would have traveled to Hiflum, where he would have confronted the Easterlings before accidentally revealing to Morgoth the location of Gondolin. Then, Húrin would have traveled to Brethil, where his actions would have caused a civil war which ended the House of Halef. You can actually read a draft of this chapter in the War of the Jewels. It's very cool, but the story abruptly ends. Thank you everyone for watching. I think that not a lot of people actually see how interesting the first stage is and how passionate Tolkien was regarding the writings set in that time. Anyways, cheers and farewell.